Let's start. Hi everyone, welcome to this channel, and today we have the pleasure not only talking about recycling but also going through my garbage bin, aka recycling bin. I'm gonna check it out and see if the things we put there are actually even meant for recycling. I already did a couple of videos about recycling on this channel, links will be down below as usual. One of the videos I really want you to watch, the video why the recycling rates are so low in America compared, let's say, to Western Europe. America is supposed to be a developed country, but for some reason the recycling is stagnating at 30-35% since forever. So we're not improving our recycling rates, although the technology allows us to actually recycle more. So I decided to look into how the recycling is done here in North America and to understand why the rates are low. But let's start with the basic. How is the recycling is done here in America? Most of the time it's a single stream recycling. What does it mean? It means that we have one bin, usually it's a blue bin, where we can put things like plastic, paper, aluminum and other stuff. Interestingly enough, in the countries that take recycling seriously, people have to separate paper from plastic, from glass and everything else. And you're probably asking yourself, why do people in Europe bother having like 4 or 5 garbage bins, and here in America we only have one recycling bin? To understand that, we have to understand what happens next after your blue bins get collected. When it's collected, it's being sent to the sorting facility. In these facilities, either using certain technology or manual labor, they sort things into different categories. When I say manual labor, I mean actual people who stand the whole day by this conveyor and they are sorting out your milk cartons from the, plastic wrappers. So the objective of this facility is to look through all the stuff and understand what out of this stuff can be recycled. Why? Because not everything what we put in the blue bin can be recycled. People basically put lots of wrong stuff in the blue bin, as well some stuff that is contaminated. For example, if you put some piece of paper but it was a food wrapper and it's super greasy and there is a food leftover, this paper cannot be recycled, it has to be discarded. Interestingly enough, this contamination problem is a big issue. Before I started my own research, I didn't even know this thing exists. And basically what it practically means, sometimes when a truck would deliver certain recyclable, technically recyclable materials to the sorting facility, and facility will realize that too many things are contaminated in this recycling truck, they would discard the whole thing, they would send the whole thing to the landfill. Contamination rates in America are around 25%, which means that 1/4 of recycling bin never gonna be recycled. We put it there, those are the materials that can be technically recycled, but because they are contaminated, it's just going to be sent to a landfill. That is also a reason why the recycling rates are low in the US, because the single stream recycling provides lots of opportunity for contamination. Let's say you put some clean cardboard and paper in your recycling bin, but then your neighbor decided to throw there a jar full of food leftovers, and when this jar breaks, all the paper in this garbage bin or in a garbage truck will be contaminated and has to be discarded. I honestly don't understand why we still use single-stream recycling here in America, because it sucks and it doesn't provide us great recycling opportunities. But I guess it is what it is. My question is, can we as consumers do something about it to make sure there is less contamination happening? Yes, we can. And the only way to do so, to make sure, like us, as well maybe as our neighbors, we are well aware what should and what shouldn't be put into the recycling bin. What exactly our municipality accepts as recyclable garbage. The tricky thing is that every municipality across US is different. Some municipalities don't accept caps for plastic bottles. Some do accept. So besides the basic rule that I'm going to share with you later, there are also specific rules that work for your particular recycling company, garbage collection company. So you have to go and check what are the rules in your particular area. And the great part of it is that internet is here, and most of the time you can easily find the website of your garbage collection company or recycling company in internet, and they always have some materials and what can or cannot be recycled. You can even print it out or just save it to your phone and use it every time you dump something. And also in this video a little bit later I will tell you about the basic rules of recycling, what should be sent there. I will have another video that will give you a very detailed information about items that should not be sent to recycling, and also I will explain why, because I believe that you not only should learn the rules but understand the logic behind them, because that's how it's easier to make educated decisions. But before we go there, I want you to understand another very important thing about the recycling and what I learned about it, especially here in North America. Here, the recycling process is not owned by government or state, it's owned by private companies. So for those companies to be doing recycling or increasing the rates, they have to be economically motivated to do so. Because what the recycling collection companies do after the sorting is done at the sorting facility, they obviously divide all the materials in different groups, and then they try to sell it on the recycling market to those companies who would buy those materials and recycle later. So if they can't buy consumer to buy these potentially recyclable materials, they will also have to send it to a landfill. So when we cause them trouble by sending them contaminated stuff, it's just easier for them to discard it, because otherwise they're going to lose more money washing it, sorting through it, like trying to make it more uniform. Another interesting thing about plastic and glass is that certain colors are more preferable by those people who buy materials for recycling. For example, white plastic is more popular, transparent glass will be also more popular. Why? Because when you use dark plastic, you can only obviously recycle it into something darker. But if you have white plastic, you can add colorants to it and change its color. So which comes to the point for me that recycling is not exactly the best solution, because some materials will just never find the consumer and will be just sent to the landfill. So I think it's also important, besides knowing the rules of recycling, also understanding better the packaging and different materials. And when you purchase something, you can actually make your choice based on the fact if this packaging or this particular material has a potential for being recycled or not. And maybe even avoiding certain materials that have no potentials to be recycled. So, what can be recycled? Basically, it's paper and cardboard, some types of plastic, some types of glass, and also aluminium and some types of steel. So no food, no clothing items, no wood, no other random materials should be sent to recycling, because they need either separate facilities, but definitely not the basic public recycling garbage collection companies. Most of the times, recycling facilities only accept clean items. So if it's paper, it has to be clean. If it was some food wrapped in it, and this food wrapper is like greasy, or it has some, I don't know, some sauce leftovers on it, or some food leftovers on it, those things can't be recycled, and they have to be sent to the black bin, to the regular garbage. The same with plastic or glass. If you send any food containers, they have to be rinsed before sent to the blue bin, and you don't need to like scrub them, but they have to be empty, so no food leftovers, just dump it in the sink, and they also have to be rinsed. Unfortunately, I learned it too late about the rinsing, and as far as I know, most people don't know about the rinsing. The mistakes I did myself when I started doing some recycling, expecting that, oh, if something is plastic, it can be recycled, or if something is paper, no matter in what state it is, it's going to be recycled. But unfortunately, it's not like this. In terms of types of materials, if something is plastic, it doesn't necessarily mean it can be recycled. There are different types of plastic, and I'm going to talk about it later as well. And also, some types of plastic, especially if it has mixed materials in it, are hard to recycle. Simple things like toothpaste tubes, although they're plastic, they usually can't be recycled because they have a mixture of materials, and also because they have a toothpaste residue in it. Usually no recycling facility accepts that. So now if I buy something made from plastic, although I try to avoid plastic when it's possible, if it's not possible, I look at the packaging, or I look at this particular item and I look for a recycling sign. If it has no recycling sign, I would think twice before purchasing it. I would try to find like recyclable alternatives. So besides paper and plastic, you can also recycle glass, but these things are tricky. Basically, you have to check with your particular recycling program. Sometimes they would accept, let's say, like glass jars from food packaging, but they will not accept any other type of glass. Let's say it's a broken glass food container or a broken Pyrex cup. They don't accept those things. Glass is tricky. Another problem with glass is that when we use single stream recycling, this glass obviously going to be broken during transportation or collecting, and if it breaks into two small pieces, usually those pieces just going to be discarded because it's too hard to deal with them. That's why I wish we had something more like in Europe, when you put glass in a certain container, so even if it breaks, at least it's like separated. Important moment. So let's look through my garbage. For example, these tins, they can be recycled, but as I said, they have to be rinsed, and also you have to check with your particular recycling company. We are lucky to live in an area where our recycling facility accepts lots of things, but I checked different facilities across US. Some of them don't accept these metal jars. This thing, it's a obviously beer box. Yeah, this can be recycled, and also you can always find this recycling sign. So if you're not sure, always look for this sign. Another interesting thing, it's a soda cup from like some fast food. This thing seems like it's paper, but it's not going to be recycled because it's coated. I will talk more detailed about this in my next video. The cap though can be sometimes recycled, but again, you have to look for the recycling sign. This particular one doesn't have a sign. Some coffee lids have this recycling sign. That means you can recycle them, but you have to separate. So this goes to garbage, this goes to recycling. Other popular thing, tomatoes. Unfortunately, where I live, I'm not always able to buy cherry tomatoes in bulk, especially now in crazy times. So this one, for example, it's a PET plastic one, so it can be recycled. The juice plastic. This is also recyclable. This is plastic number 1, this is PET. This is actually a highly recyclable thing. Again, the only problem, somebody didn't rinse it. I'm not gonna point the fingers, we're just gonna yell at this person later. Well, I guess it's time to talk about the types of plastic. If you look at the bottom of your plastic bottle or plastic container, it will have this little sign with the number. Basically, the number 1 and number 2 are the lucky numbers because those are widely accepted in most recycling facilities. So if you have number 1 or number 2, you should be at least less guilty for buying those products in this particular plastic packaging. To give you some examples, number 1, it's PET, it's usually water bottles or soda bottles or any juice bottles. Number 2, it's usually milk jugs, if it's a plastic milk jug, shower gels and things like that. There is another one, it's number 5. It's a little bit tricky, sometimes it's accepted, sometimes it's not. You have to check with your facility, unfortunately I can't tell you. There are some numbers that are unlucky numbers. These are the numbers 3, 4 and 6. Those numbers usually not accepted, at least not widely accepted by municipal facilities. So if you can avoid packaging in those numbers or those plastic items, that would be the best. Another unlucky number is number 7 actually. Almost forgot about it. Usually it's a plastic that contains different materials in it, so it's mixed plastic. Usually those things are not really recyclable, and also it's like some bioplastic, biodegradable plastic goes in there. And if you talk about biodegradable plastic, they have to be accepted by your composting facility, but sometimes they are not. But they are not for the recycling bin. Do we really need to remember those types of plastic? Obviously, if you do remember them, that would be cool. But in general, like my rule right now is, first of all, go to my recycling facility website and either print out. Printing out is not bad, but if it helps you to stay good in terms of recycling, you can print it out once, or just save it to your phone, just the leaflet, and see what can be recycled. They don't tell you about the numbers, they just tell you by the type of products, by the type of packaging, and this is usually easier. For example, they will tell you, oh, we accept aluminum cans, we accept steel jars, we accept clean paper and cardboard, we accept this type of plastic packaging, but we don't accept the other type of plastic packaging. In my next video, that will be called Things That Cannot Be Recycled, I will talk more in detail about particular things. For example, things like that. That's a food wrapper. Can you recycle it or not? So if you want to learn more about these principles, watch my next video. And sometimes we send the wrong things, and it turns out they can actually destroy the whole recycling plant. I mean, not the plant, but can destroy something.